My name is Grace Gu. I should have known that peace was never meant to last. Prince Adrian's first love, Jade Zhen, the woman he had cherished for 10 long years, had returned. She stood before me with her chin raised high, her voice dripping with disdain. "You," she declared, "need to disappear." I gathered my skirts and stepped gracefully into the waiting carriage, turning back to offer her a serene smile. "I'm terribly sorry, but this position is no longer available to you." For I was the carefully groomed candidate who had been cultivated by the Duke of Dingo's household for a full decade. Prince Adrian had reached the point where he would marry no one but me, leaving even the emperor with little choice in the matter. After all, my lineage, appearance, and accomplishments were considered unparalleled among the eligible young ladies of the realm. During the final palace examination, only the emperor, empress, and Prince Adrian were present. The emperor posed a question that would determine my fate. If you were asked to renounce everything from the duke's household, your wealth, your status, your very identity, simply to be with the crown prince, would you be willing? Your humble servant would be honored to do so, I replied without hesitation. The Marquis Gu was immensely pleased with my answer. You see, as a military commander who controlled significant armed forces, the emperor viewed him with considerable wariness. When the Marquis looked upon my face, he would burst into hearty laughter, exclaiming, "Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Heaven has taken pity on me and bestowed you as a gift." The truth was, I had been rescued from among the refugees by Marquis Gu himself. He had arranged proper burials for my parents and brother, taken me as his adopted daughter, and announced to the world that I was the legitimate daughter of the Duke's wife, a child who had been sent to the countryside in her early years to recover from a delicate constitution. I knelt before him in gratitude. "It is I who must thank Father for granting me new life." "Excellent," he replied with satisfaction. "Our 10 years of careful planning have led to this very moment." My first encounter with Prince Adrian occurred at the Spring Festival. He studied my face for what seemed an eternity before slowly asking, "Do you happen to know Miss Jade Zhen, the legitimate daughter of the Earl's household?" I shook my head, feigning innocent confusion. "You bear a striking resemblance to her," he continued, his voice carrying a note of wistful longing, "though she has a birthmark between her eyebrows that forms the perfect shape of a lotus blossom, which adds a certain charm to her beauty." With carefully practiced shyness, I replied, "I've only recently returned to the capital. Was this young lady not present today?" Prince Adrian shook his head, his expression clouded with disappointment. "She maintains her distance to avoid any impropriety. She prefers not to see me." I laughed gently. "Your Highness possesses such remarkable handsomeness that even other women might pale in comparison. How could anyone bear to avoid such a countenance? She truly doesn't understand what a treasure she's rejecting." From that day forward, Prince Adrian remembered me, Grace Gu, the legitimate daughter of the Duke of Dingo, who bore an uncanny resemblance to Jade Zhen. From the very first day I entered the Duke's household, I understood perfectly why I had been chosen. My selection was based entirely on my resemblance to Jade Zhen, the Earl's precious daughter who had captured Prince Adrian's devoted attention since childhood, inspiring him to follow her everywhere with tender solicitude. Marquis Gu never concealed his motivations for rescuing me, just as I never pretended ignorance of his true purpose. We maintained our false father-daughter relationship purely for appearances, performing this charade for the outside world. He provided me with comfort and security. I would help him achieve his grand ambitions. Through carefully placed bribes, Marquis Gu had arranged for Jade Zhen's daily medication to be tampered with, causing her to suffer from digestive ailments for several days. This unfortunate illness forced her to miss the Spring Festival, leaving the lovesick Prince Adrian to assume his beloved was deliberately avoiding him. After all, which young lady wouldn't maintain her distance from him? Drawing too close would inevitably spark gossip and rumors, potentially bringing scandal upon her family. But I was different. I pretended complete ignorance of his royal status. treating him merely as a wealthy young gentleman. Chestnut and chicken stew was prepared by the imperial kitchen, Prince Adrian said thoughtfully, selecting a choice piece of chicken and chestnut with his chopsticks. Please, you must try it. I smiled demurely. How kind of your lordship, but I confess I prefer my chestnut stew without the chestnuts. Prince Adrian paused, clearly surprised, then tentatively offered me a dish of braised shrimp. This preparation is rich, yet not heavy. I didn't refuse this offering, elegantly consuming one shrimp before commenting, "The flavor is indeed delightful, though I believe fresh shrimp is best served simply steamed or boiled to preserve its natural essence." Prince Adrian could no longer conceal the shock and joy that lit up his features. Even your culinary preferences are identical to hers. Of course they were identical. Marquis Gu had paid handsomely for such detailed intelligence. I knew Jade Zhen's daily habits more intimately than my own. How fascinating, I replied with genuine seeming delight. How remarkable that I should share such a connection with this young lady. I must say, I rather admired my own acting abilities. After all, when one spends every day performing, it becomes difficult not to excel at the craft. Following the Spring Festival, everyone in the capital knew that the Duke of Dingguo's daughter bore 8 parts resemblance to Jade Zhen and had conversed most agreeably with Prince Adrian. Street gossips amused themselves by suggesting that Prince Adrian was treating me as a more compliant and obedient version of Jade Zhen. Marquis Gu publicly punished me with house arrest for this perceived disgrace to the Duke's reputation. Prince Adrian, feeling guilty about the situation, bribed the household steward to secretly deliver a pair of magnolia flower earrings as a token of his regret. At the birthday celebration for the Dowager Lady of England, while other noble daughters adorned themselves with gold and silver to display their status, I wore only those simple jade earrings. It was there that I first encountered Jade Zhen, whose eyes held nothing but cold disdain. "Those are from the Crown Prince, aren't they?" she said in a voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "I've always adored magnolia flowers. He specially commissioned that pair to be made, though I declined to accept them." She delivered this cutting remark without so much as lifting her eyes to acknowledge me before walking away. This interaction seemed to confirm everyone's suspicions that I was indeed Jade Zhen's substitute. In the days that followed, wives and daughters of various households made my situation the centerpiece of their tea-time gossip, mocking me as one who would ape her betters and chase impossible dreams. Marquis Gu and I sat in the garden sipping tea while the steward reported how thoroughly this scandal had spread throughout the city. "Release more deer into the forest," Marquis Gu instructed. "It's time for a hunt." Each year on the beginning of summer, military officials brought their families to the hunting grounds for sport. While other young ladies remained in pavilions sipping tea and admiring scenery, I rode alongside the young gentlemen, bow in hand, pursuing rabbits and deer across the open terrain. "She prefers quiet pursuits," Prince Adrian commented, sitting astride his Arabian stallion, "usually reading and painting." I smiled as I adjusted my grip on the reins. Having been raised in the countryside, I've grown fond of vast skies and open lands. I'm not quite so delicately refined as most noble daughters. Prince Adrian seemed momentarily startled. "You shouldn't let idle gossip trouble your peace of mind." I said nothing more, tightening the reins and drawing my bowstring toward a grazing deer. My arrow found its mark perfectly. That day, Prince Adrian watched my retreating figure for a very long time. My second encounter with Jade Zhen occurred at a poetry gathering hosted by Lady Boyang, the Empress's sister. This marked my first participation in such an event, where I managed to break Jade Zhen's long-standing record of victory and claimed the top prize. Lady Boyang praised me lavishly, declaring that I could compose poetry and prose with literary skill, yet also ride horses and hunt with martial prowess, truly the finest example among young ladies of noble birth. However, she added with calculated observation, "Your attire seems rather plain for a duke's legitimate daughter." I smiled gracefully. The most precious adornments are those bestowed by His Majesty and the Crown Prince. The prince took pity on my childhood illnesses and gifted these magnolia earrings as a blessing for my health. I naturally treasure such kindness. Since magnolia flowers represent elegance, simple robes complement them best. Lady Boyang, naturally familiar with the earrings' history, smiled approvingly. Perfectly appropriate, refined and pure, quite suitable for you. Bring me my jade hairpins and ornaments. She summoned me to her side and placed the pins in my hair. These accessories featured white jade of elegant simplicity, pure green jade, and purple jade that seemed to drift like gentle smoke, all accented with golden leaves that proclaimed their imperial origin. These were bestowed upon me by the Empress Dowager, she explained. There is only one such set in all the realm. Today I notice they pair beautifully with your earrings, so I shall present them to you. As the poetry gathering concluded and guests began departing, I passed close to Jade Zhen and whispered softly, "Magnolia flowers represent not only purity, but also the welcoming of good fortune. There exists in this world a particular type of person who, rather than swiftly capturing their prey, derives greater pleasure from watching their quarry slowly fall into their carefully laid traps. Jade Zhen belonged precisely to this category. Despite her affected air of noble detachment, she could never remain truly indifferent to the position of crown princess. Yet she preferred to have Prince Adrian transform her into an object of universal envy, the central topic of every social conversation. Prince Adrian's devotion to Jade Zhen had been legendary. In summer, he sent carefully preserved ice blocks. In winter, he provided tribute-quality hand warmers. Jade Zhen accepted every gift while maintaining polite distance, as if avoiding any hint of impropriety. Without my appearance, Prince Adrian would likely have continued his devoted pursuit indefinitely, treasuring what remained forever beyond his reach. But I did appear, and I became more like her than she herself, the version of Jade Zhen who kept her desires and schemes carefully hidden. I understood how to please those within the imperial power circle, beginning with Lady Boyang. Regardless of how others might gossip about me, as long as she perceived me as properly submissive to royal authority, humbly grateful for Prince Adrian's favor, and honored by his gifts, that would suffice. Jade Zhen's greatest mistake lay in her ability to bewitch Prince Adrian's soul while simultaneously offending other members of the royal family. Following that day, with Lady Boyang's protection, no one dared spread malicious gossip. I became the most sought-after guest at every noble household's entertainments throughout the capital. Whether the activities involved polo matches, pitch-pot games, poetry competitions, or flower arranging, I handled each with perfect grace. Day after day passed, and throughout them all I maintained my carefully cultivated royal favor, those magnolia earrings and jade hairpins that symbolized imperial blessing. I wore them from summer straight through to early autumn, when the day arrived for noble ladies to pay their respects to the Empress. Upon seeing my accessories, the Empress smiled and observed, "Grace possesses natural elegance, though she should commission some finer garments to better reflect the Duke's household's dignity." I bowed respectfully. Father often teaches that material wealth is external and that excessive desire brings no benefit. He instructs us that rather than pursuing expensive things, we should understand what is appropriate. Everything the Duke's household possesses comes from imperial grace, and we dare not forget our proper place. The Empress was thoroughly pleased. She truly is as well behaved as my sister described. When we departed the palace, she granted me a cartload of jewelry and clothing, instructing her attendant to convey this message. Young ladies at the flower of their youth should dress more charmingly. Jade Zhen had also attended this audience, though according to family rank, my seat was positioned above hers. The Empress, with limited attention to spare, would not waste time examining the same face twice. After autumn arrived, Lady Boyang hosted an elegant gathering at her residence for noble families to enjoy crab delicacies, admire chrysanthemums, and compose poetry. This time, Prince Adrian attended as well. Having lost the spotlight to me at the previous poetry gathering, Jade Jen chose painting as her medium this time, creating an exquisitely delicate chrysanthemum composition. Prince Adrian praised her work enthusiastically. Miss Jade's painting could rival that of master artists. While graciously acknowledging Prince Adrian's compliment, Jade Jen cast a proud glance in my direction, as if to say, "See how the crown prince rushes to attend me with just the slightest gesture?" Following her gaze, Prince Adrian's attention turned to me. This time, I had not worn his magnolia earrings, instead choosing the jewelry and robes the Empress had bestowed. Prince Adrian's expression immediately showed disappointment. After all, he knew how much I treasured those earrings. "Miss Grace," Prince Adrian finally asked, unable to restrain himself, "do you practice painting? My aunt mentioned your exceptional literary talents." I looked up with a gentle smile. "I do not, and certainly not in Miss Jade's presence. That would be pure presumption." Jen was thoroughly satisfied. When guests departed, she held her head high as she stepped toward her carriage, nearly stumbling in her prideful haste. On a crisp autumn day, Marquis Gu and I went fishing in the countryside, catching several beautifully fresh fish. The Marquis ordered a basketful sent to Prince Adrian, along with a calligraphy scroll that the prince had long been seeking. The following day, Prince Adrian returned the scroll. The household steward had mistakenly delivered not the requested calligraphy, but a painting titled Autumn Harvest Scene. The steward knelt before us in apology. The Marquis instructed me to fetch a prepared scroll from the study, but I foolishly selected the wrong one. Prince Adrian showed no anger. "No matter. I've come today because I wish to inquire about this painting's origin. It truly represents superior artistry." Marquis Gu chuckled modestly. "It was painted by my daughter Grace after our fishing expedition, depicting the countryside harvest scenes. I fear it has given your highness cause for amusement." Prince Adrian's face lit with genuine delight. "The Marquis is far too modest. Miss Grace's artistic skill rivals that of master painters. Having the privilege to view this work today has been deeply enriching. Should the opportunity arise in future, I would certainly wish to seek Miss Grace's guidance in artistic matters." After viewing that painting, Prince Adrian could not rest easy. He began visiting the Duke's household every few days under various pretexts, seeking calligraphy scrolls, discussing archery techniques, playing strategic board games. Unfortunately, autumn brought heavy dew and strong winds, leaving me suffering from a cold that made it inappropriate to receive visitors. Thus, I had been unable to meet with Prince Adrian despite his frequent visits. During my illness, seeking entertainment to pass the tedious hours, I created several paintings: autumn chrysanthemums, maple leaves, migrating geese, and a woman gazing from her window while confined to her sickbed. Marquis Gu, in his paternal devotion, hung these works in his study where he could view them daily, feeling as though he were seeing his daughter. Thus Prince Adrian examined and praised every single painting, and the more he admired my artwork, the more eager he became to meet me in person. When I judged the timing appropriate, Marquis Gu began extending invitations for guests to attend the birthday celebration for the Duke's wife at the beginning of the month. The birthday feast featured not only the finest cuisine, but also various entertainments and prizes designed to ensure guests enjoyed themselves thoroughly. The painting competition's prize was a work by Ni Yin titled Autumn Dwelling in Empty Mountains, a painting Jade Jen had copied multiple times. She naturally threw herself into the competition with greatest enthusiasm and undoubtedly earned unanimous praise from all present. However, Prince Adrian never nodded his approval. After studying the submitted works for an extended time, he asked, "Will Miss Grace not contribute a painting?" I coughed delicately into my sleeve. I wouldn't presume to embarrass myself, particularly given my incomplete recovery. Jade Jen's complexion became quite unpleasant. For the first time, she witnessed Prince Adrian's subtle disappointment in her work. Timidly, she asked, "Does Your Highness find my painting inadequate?" Only then did Prince Adrian realize his beloved had become upset. "Miss Jade's work is naturally excellent." After the guests departed, Marquis Gu and I examined the various paintings in his study. I smiled and observed, trading one Ni Yin painting to ensure she no longer holds first place in Prince Adrian's heart. Quite worthwhile. This marked the first time Prince Adrian had failed to champion Jade Jen's interests, despite knowing her preferences. Following my full recovery, I happened to be available when Prince Adrian came calling. Since Marquis Gu was away conducting military drills, I entertained Prince Adrian in the study while we awaited his return. "Miss Grace," Prince Adrian began, clearly having contained this question for some time, "I must ask, given your remarkable artistic accomplishments, why do you never display such talents publicly?" I smiled softly. "Initially, I assumed your lordship was simply a wealthy gentleman. Upon learning of your true identity and hearing of your mutual affection with Miss Jade of the Earl's household, I naturally felt I must maintain appropriate distance to avoid overshadowing her achievements." Prince Adrian's expression darkened noticeably at the phrase mutual affection. I continued, "These are my honest thoughts, shared only because I'm grateful for Your Highness's kindness in giving me those earrings and treating me as a confidant. I am not one to forget propriety. Though I may resemble her in 8 parts out of 10, all matters observe proper precedence. Even if I harbored feelings, I could never use mere resemblance to steal another's beloved. I hope Your Highness understands." Prince Adrian, being an intelligent man, certainly grasped that my feelings extended beyond mere painting. "Miss Grace," he asked, "if you encountered 2 sisters of similar appearance, age, learning, and accomplishments, one who maintained proud distance and avoided your company, while the other welcomed your friendship openly and warmly, which would you choose?" I laughed gently. "Naturally the latter. I'm not foolish enough to seek unnecessary suffering for myself." Prince Adrian joined in my laughter. "Nor am I foolish in such matters." When Prince Adrian departed that day, he presented me with a mutton-fat jade bracelet. "There is only one such piece in all the world," he explained. In early winter, Lady Boyang acquired some exceptional venison and invited several young people to her residence for a feast of roasted deer meat. Reclining on her heated platform, Lady Boyang smiled and said, "Winter always leaves me feeling languid. You young people bring such vitality. Your energy helps refresh my spirits." I glanced around the room, noting that all the noble daughters present were of similar age, suggesting this gathering related to Prince Adrian's upcoming marriage selection. "Jade's bracelet has such lovely translucence, very becoming on you," Lady Boyang remarked, immediately noticing the bracelet on Jade Jen's wrist. Jade Jen smiled in response. "Your ladyship has excellent taste. This was a birthday gift from the Crown Prince." Lady Boyang then observed my accessory with interest. Though Grace's mutton-fat jade bracelet appears even more precious, it was crafted specifically for noble consort Duan by the founding emperor. His Majesty once declared noble consort Duan his only true confidant. It seems the Crown Prince holds you in very high regard indeed. Jade Jen's face became quite unpleasant. For her birthday, Prince Adrian had sent multiple carriages loaded with gifts, yet none approached the value of this single mutton-fat jade bracelet. With Prince Adrian's marriage selection approaching after the new year, Jade Jen could no longer maintain her facade of proud indifference. The following day, she invited me to a tea house meeting where she tearfully apologized. "I have been terribly wrong to subject you to such gossip and malicious talk, allowing people to claim you were merely imitating me. From now on, we shall be true sisters. Should anyone dare spread rumors about you again, I shall personally tear out their lying tongues." I appeared deeply moved. "Sister? We are bound by destiny's own design. Being able to befriend you is my greatest blessing." Jade Jen wept like a rain-washed pear blossom. "Ultimately, I have wronged you. You, a duke's legitimate daughter, have been used by the crown prince as a tool to provoke me. This is truly unjust." Upon hearing these words, the gratitude on my face began transforming into disappointment. Jade Jen continued, "I know you are also proud. In this world of countless worthy gentlemen, you certainly cannot accept being someone's substitute. Just a few days ago on my birthday, the crown prince sent multiple carriages of gifts, yet I couldn't help thinking how painful this must be for you." Seeing me lower my head and weep silently without speaking, Jade Jen sighed deeply. "My dear sister, I speak thus only because I care for you. If you trust me, I shall petition the crown prince on your behalf, asking him to restore your freedom and recognize you as the precious grace you truly are." Jade Jen continued sighing sympathetically, repeatedly lamenting how I had been manipulated and expressing heartfelt concern for my situation. She was absolutely convinced that someone of my family background and personal accomplishments would never accept being another's substitute, but she miscalculated completely. I was more than willing to play that role. Thus, my dear sister, Jade Jen, arranged a poetry and literary gathering with Prince Adrian, during which she recounted all my supposed difficulties and grievances. Actually, whatever she told Prince Adrian mattered little to me. I almost hoped she would make her account as outrageous as possible. I had the mutton fat jade bracelet carefully wrapped and returned to the prince's residence, while keeping only the magnolia earrings. When Marquis Gu was discussing affairs with Prince Adrian, I sent someone to summon him home urgently. "My lord, the young lady has collapsed from weeping." When Prince Adrian accompanied Marquis Gu to our residence, I had just regained consciousness. I knelt weakly on the floor, performing proper obeisance to Prince Adrian. "Grace never imagined she would see your highness again," I said, tears gathering in my eyes while my lips curved in a faint smile. "You no longer wish to see me, did you?" "I have been presumptuous," Prince Adrian replied, apparently recalling Jade Jen's words. I struggled to control my tears. "As long as your highness and sister remain devoted as always, whether it be a bracelet unique in all the world or a prince unique among all people, Grace willingly heeds sister's wishes and returns what belongs to her." Prince Adrian's departing figure froze mid-stride. That day, after a moment's hesitation, Prince Adrian still left without turning back. I knew that toppling his idealized first love would require more than this, but no matter. Once tiny cracks appeared, complete collapse would be inevitable. Prince Adrian never visited me again, though Jade Jen came frequently. I never urged her to leave. Instead, we spent considerable time together. Thus, when Lady Boyang sent an invitation for a private visit, Jade Jen naturally accompanied me. Upon seeing Jade Jen, Lady Boyang was visibly displeased. "Grace, my dear," she said when Jade Jen stepped away to refresh herself, "are you familiar with the fable of the farmer and the snake? Sometimes one must not be too kind to others." I smiled gently. "But Sister Jade is precious to the Crown Prince's heart and lacks nothing. What could she possibly want from me?" When Jade Jen returned, Lady Boyang remarked, "Miss Grace, your peaceful, uncompetitive nature reminds me greatly of the Empress. My sister also followed natural course without forcing matters, yet heaven smiled upon her and she became Empress." These words were sufficient to crush Jade Jen's remaining rationality. Fate remains unpredictable for everyone, a truth Jade Jen understood better than most. To her, I represented an unforeseen variable, and the only way to eliminate such uncertainty was to ensure it ceased to exist. After returning from Lady Boyang's residence, Jade Jen didn't invite me anywhere for over 10 days. I suspected she was making preparations. Sure enough, she eventually sent someone to invite me, claiming the lake at her family's villa had frozen solid and asking me to join her for ice skating. Jade glided gracefully across the ice surface in her skates, even pulling me along to play, acting as intimately as if we had known each other for over a decade. When we reached near the lake's center, Jade spun me around in circles. Perhaps from spinning too many times, when she released my hands, I drifted toward the lake's heart. The ice beneath my feet quickly began showing cracks. I knew this was Jade arranged trap. These cracks resembled the growing suspicions in Prince Adrian's heart, both deepening, spreading, and gradually widening. I pretended to stumble and fall onto the ice surface, grasping a large ice chunk to stabilize myself while lying prone across it. The ice felt bone-piercingly cold, but I knew this was my best opportunity. I waited for Prince Adrian to arrive. When I saw Prince Adrian leading men toward us amid Jade's cries, I slowly slipped from that ice block and fell through into the freezing water. I rarely employed such desperate tactics, as they damaged one's health, but having this chance, I intended to use it fully. When I awakened, I found myself back in the Duke's residence. I learned that Prince Adrian had rescued me and was still waiting in the outer hall. "Thank you, Your Highness, for saving my life. I had hoped to invite you to witness sisters dancing, never expecting to cause such trouble," I managed, while struggling to maintain my balance and bow properly. Prince Adrian immediately supported me, asking with some reproach, "Having grown up in the South, you clearly could have declined this invitation." I forced a pale smile. "Recently, Sister has been in good spirits, no longer maintaining her former distance from Your Highness. Grace thought that as long as Sister remained happy, she and Your Highness could continue harmoniously, so I couldn't bear to spoil her enjoyment." I could see clearly that anger had appeared in Prince Adrian's eyes. "You treat her as a true sister, but she doesn't necessarily consider your welfare." From that day forward, Prince Adrian sent bird's nest soup and other nourishing supplements daily, while I continued pleading illness to refuse Jade's tearful apologies and attempts to visit me during my recovery. After the second day of the new year, the capital reached its most festive period. From dawn to dusk, every household hosted banquets. Learning that the Earl's household had scheduled their celebration for the fourth day, our Duke's household set ours for the third. Jade was renowned for her culinary skills, so I struggled to learn cooking as well. Though I mastered only 2 specialties, they would suffice. I personally oversaw this family feast. While most officials' daughters maintained reserve and rarely displayed household management abilities, I arranged everything perfectly. My roasted lamb surpassed even restaurant preparations, earning universal admiration from our guests, who were amazed that an unmarried young lady could manage such affairs. The following day, Jade also personally managed the Earl's household feast. Although every dish at the main table was her own creation, she had missed the optimal timing. Thus, everyone in the capital began saying that Jade, seeing my success, had hastily attempted to imitate me. But how could she compare? After all, one is a duke's legitimate daughter. The noble rank differs considerably. See how quickly opinions shifted? Within just 1 year, gossip had transformed me from substitute to the original being imitated. After the new year, as the official marriage selection list was being finalized, everyone spoke cautiously and declined social outings. I personally made chestnut cakes and visited the Empress to pay my respects. Grace, though some might suspect I come seeking your favor, regardless of my future position, I have always revered your majesty. As long as you remain, I should remember our ancestors' rules and come to offer New Year greetings." After hearing these words, the Empress took my hand and sighed with feeling. "All the young ladies are anxious about becoming crown princess, but only you remember proper etiquette." After conversing extensively with the Empress, when she grew tired, she commanded, "Summon the Crown Prince to personally escort Grace home." Though this was officially Prince Adrian's marriage selection, the final decision rested with the Emperor and Empress choosing from among those the Crown Prince favored. "Your Highness, Grace is also on the selection roster," I said proactively as we sat in the carriage. Prince Adrian said nothing, glancing at me to indicate I should continue. I smiled. Previously, when Your Highness mentioned that sister avoided you, Grace thought that since I resemble her, perhaps I could provide Your Highness some comfort. Therefore, knowing those magnolia earrings were made for sister, I still wore them, thinking that even if Your Highness treated me as sister's substitute, if it brought you peace, Grace would be content. I sighed. Now that sister and Your Highness have resolved your misunderstandings, Grace naturally need not remain at Your Highness's side, lest sister become displeased seeing me. Did she also teach you to say these things? Prince Adrian asked coldly. I quickly knelt in the carriage. These are Grace's own thoughts. I had hoped that by being a substitute, I might at least earn some of Your Highness's attention, but now that the true original has returned, if I didn't regard you as her substitute, would you be willing to remain? Prince Adrian extended his hand to help me up as he asked. The tears I had long contained immediately flowed forth. Grace never dared hope for such a day. To hope, that implied I had indeed hoped. The marriage selection roster was published, with both Jade Jen and myself listed, as expected. The preliminary selection was overseen by Lady Boyong, who knew the character and appearance of every young lady in the capital. After the initial screening came personal interviews conducted by Prince Adrian and the Empress together, followed by final palace examinations administered by the Emperor. I had long since investigated this entire process, which was why I had spoken so deliberately. I wanted Prince Adrian to remember this conversation. After the preliminary selection, successful candidates were housed together in the palace to await interviews 3 days later. Jade Jen bribed the supervising matrons to share quarters with me. Before her, I arranged my belongings, taking out an aqua-colored dress. This outfit was prepared by Mother, who said the Empress favors aqua shades. The style is also Lady Boyong's favorite, reportedly fashionable in the palace. Even these hair ornaments were personally bestowed by the Empress previously. Jade Jen smiled. Wearing this ensemble, wouldn't sister be assured of victory? I laughed as well. Sister, you've forgotten what we discussed before. Younger sister will not remain at the Crown Prince's side. So I thought, why shouldn't sister wear this outfit instead? When sister becomes Crown Princess, I too will share in that glory. Given that news had spread after Prince Adrian personally escorted me from the palace, Jade Jen half believed my words. If sister doubts me, shall I wear it through the interview process first, then join sister for the final examination? I joked deliberately, which indeed alarmed Jade Jen. My dear sister, I naturally trust your sincerity. Jade Jen smiled while accepting the garment, offering me her own dress in exchange. I'm grateful for your generous gesture. On interview day, candidates were divided into groups led by different matrons. Jade Jen and I were separated, but before departing, she watched me don a pink lotus-colored dress, then smiled with relief and left wearing the aqua outfit nearly identical to what I had worn when first meeting Prince Adrian at the Spring Festival. I waited, then put on the magnolia earrings I had kept concealed in my hand. Had Jade Jen not worn that dress, I wouldn't have been completely confident of success. But she did wear it, desperate to prove her feelings to Prince Adrian. Perhaps Prince Adrian's affection for me wasn't deeply profound, but the more Jade Jen tried to manipulate his choices, the more he resented her interference. He was the crown prince. When had his decisions become others' concern? As I anticipated, when Prince Adrian saw Jade Jen wearing that outfit, he showed no delight. His eyes reflected only disappointment. His idealized first love, once coldly aloof, now appeared willing to become someone else's substitute merely for the crown princess position. Nevertheless, he still selected her. I wore elaborate gold and silver ornaments as required, though the jade earrings clashed terribly with such finery. Prince Adrian noticed my earrings and smiled. Spring is indeed magnolia blossom season. I too was chosen. I willingly wore earrings originally meant for Jade Jen, gladly playing her substitute. Prince Adrian was delighted, but when Jade Jen wore my clothing and imitated my demeanor, Prince Adrian was annoyed. After interviews, only 4 candidates remained. With 1 month until final examinations, we could return home to await results. Upon reaching home, the steward reported, "The entire capital is saying that Miss Jen, desperate to become crown princess, stooped to stealing our young lady's dress, hoping to trick the crown prince into mistaking her for Grace." I observed Marquis Gu calmly sipping tea and smiled. "Father's handiwork, I assume?" Marquis Gu laughed heartily. "Merely distributing some silver. After all, the Earl's household has always owed me. Without my intervention, they never would have escaped so cleanly years ago." Before final examinations, Prince Adrian was confined to the palace, forbidden contact with anyone except trusted attendants. When spring brought warm weather, I invited Jade Jen to go boating and fly kites by the lake. Jade Jen looked quite displeased, reverting to her former haughty demeanor. "I treated you as my own sister, never imagining you were scheming against me." I feigned ignorance. "Sister, whatever do you mean?" Jade Jen laughed coldly. "I've become the capital's laughingstock, and you must be quite pleased. I thought you kindly lent me clothing. Turns out you took me for a fool." I smiled slightly. The Empress does indeed favor Aqua, and sister was indeed selected, wasn't she? What matter who substituted for whom? Aren't we sisters? Jade Jen sat by the lakeside, regarding me coldly while our maids flew kites in the distance. "When you fell through the ice, the crown prince arrived remarkably quickly. You summoned him, didn't you?" I tossed a pebble into the lake. "Indeed. Otherwise, perishing in those icy waters would have fulfilled sister's wishes." I stood, looking down at Jade Jen. "Sister, did you truly believe we unrelated strangers were actual sisters?" Jade Jen's expression hardened. She remained speechless for some time. "Never mind, sister. We'll meet again at the final examination. I hear His Majesty will test many subjects. I must return to prepare." As I walked toward my carriage, Jade Jen pursued me. "You planned everything from the beginning, didn't you? All that gentle weakness and seeming consideration, pure calculation." I looked at Jade Jen. Her eyes blazed with fury, beautiful features contorted with rage, as if she could flay me alive. "Yes," I admitted. "I'll expose your schemes and make the crown prince see your true nature. Don't dream of becoming crown princess. That position was always reserved for me. Only I can capture his deepest devotion. You should disappear completely." Jade Jen shrieked without regard for dignity. I gathered my skirts and stepped into the carriage, turning back to offer her that serene smile. "I'm terribly sorry, but this position is no longer available to you." What sisterly affection! True relatives aren't proclaimed with words. Marquis Gu and I maintained our father-daughter relationship, yet what did that matter? I still anticipated the moment of his downfall. Jade Jen had lost her composure through my manipulation, spending each day plotting how to expose me when she next saw Prince Adrian. Meanwhile, I dedicated myself daily to beauty treatments, posture correction, and learning proper responses for imperial audiences. On examination day, Marquis Gu personally escorted me to the palace gates. He wore a well-maintained dark blue robe, his eyes full of paternal concern as he watched me being led inside. In the great hall, 4 candidates stood in order according to family rank. From left to right, I stood first. Grace Gu, legitimate daughter of the Duke of Dingguo, age 17. I knelt obediently, bowing to the rulers assembled above. "The Duke raises daughters well, beautiful and properly mannered," the Emperor said, clearly pleased with his first impression. "The Empress and Lady Boyang frequently praise your understanding and sense of propriety." I continued kneeling in gratitude. This humble woman is foolish. Her Majesty, as mother of our nation, naturally cherishes every subject. Lady Boyang, kind-hearted and compassionate, took pity on my rustic upbringing and offered kind words at social gatherings. The emperor's real interest was whether Marquis Gu had cultivated relationships with the empress and Lady Boyang. The emperor smiled while examining me carefully. "The crown prince tells me you excel at painting and are accomplished in poetry and literature." I replied softly, "Father often says he is a rough soldier who understands warfare but not refined culture. Therefore, he has me study literature, understand principles, know proportions, recognize advancement and retreat, maintain proper perspective so I may observe correct boundaries." The emperor, wary of Marquis Gu's military power, was thoroughly satisfied hearing that the marquis considered himself uncultured while requiring his daughter to understand propriety and rules. "If you were asked to abandon everything from the duke's household simply to be with the crown prince, would you be willing?" I answered firmly, "Your humble servant would be willing." Beyond Jade Zhen, I paid little attention to the other two candidates. Beside me, Jade Zhen heard the emperor remark with a smile, "She bears some resemblance to the duke's daughter." I noticed Jade Zhen's expression change. Previously, people always said I resembled her. After completing her obeisance, Jade Zhen said softly, "The crown prince also mentioned that Grace resembles your humble servant." She desperately wanted to prove to Prince Adrian that I was imitating her to usurp her position, but she characteristically forgot that the current authority was the emperor. The emperor's face darkened. No one had ever dared contradict him so boldly. The empress said coldly, "The resemblance exists, but unlike Grace, she lacks proper manners." Jade Zhen froze in the great hall, finally realizing her mistake. She cast desperate glances toward Prince Adrian for rescue. Prince Adrian had already witnessed her persistent attempts to prove I was imitating her and force my withdrawal. Therefore, he showed no response to her plea for help. His idealized first love had completely crumbled. Sometimes I wonder, had Jade Zhen not revealed her hidden desires through my provocation, maintaining her distant, refined demeanor, and preserving Prince Adrian's illusions about her, perhaps he might have kept her as a secondary consort. But she was too terrified of my replacing her, too afraid of losing power and status. Her true nature was exposed. The more she tried to approach Prince Adrian as I did, the more her desires became apparent, and Prince Adrian's impression and fantasies about her grew increasingly unstable. Until the final examination, when she overstepped imperial authority by mentioning Prince Adrian. Jade Zhen had to be supported as she left the palace. I departed in a cushioned sedan chair accompanied by the Empress's personal attendant. Marquis Gu was extremely pleased with my performance. The following day, the Emperor's personal eunuch arrived to announce the imperial decree. I had become crown princess. This time, Prince Adrian selected no secondary consorts. I heard Jade Zhen wrote multiple letters to Prince Adrian, all returned unread. Families previously allied with the Earl's household rushed to the Duke's residence seeking meetings, but Marquis Gu declined all audiences. On the wedding day, I shall naturally invite all colleagues to celebrate together. Every move by the Duke's household was now under strict surveillance. Marquis Gu prepared a dowry that was generous compared to most families, though modest by ducal standards. He maintained his frugal performance to the very end. I willingly cooperated with his charade. "Father, entering the palace means uncertain future meetings. May I take some of your personal belongings as keepsakes?" This display of filial devotion moved even the emperor to sigh, "Daughters truly are better." Prince Adrian's wedding, Marquis Gu's daughter's marriage, 10 miles of red silk, charity kitchens established, the entire nation celebrating. Late at night, when guests departed, I sat properly on the sandalwood marriage bed awaiting Prince Adrian. Prince Adrian gently lifted my veil, speaking with slight intoxication. "Perfect. Grace is beautiful." After our wedding night, when Prince Adrian awakened, I was curled in his arms, tightly clutching his arm. "What's this? Afraid I might disappear?" Prince Adrian freed his arm to embrace me, asking with amusement. I whispered softly, Grace never dreamed she would ultimately be with your highness, but I fear this is merely a dream that will vanish upon waking. Prince Adrian gently smoothed my hair. Grace, don't worry. I want you. Not anyone else. Seeing my continued silence, Prince Adrian added, You are like that mutton-fat jade bracelet, unique in all the world, irreplaceable by anyone. He then kissed my forehead tenderly. 2 months after becoming crown princess, Marquis Gu sent word urging me to act. Marquis Gu loved wealth and power more than anyone. His frugal, submissive performance was merely to reassure the emperor. From the moment he first saw me, he determined to make me crown princess, to place me as Prince Adrian's pillow companion. The emperor had only one son. Without Prince Adrian, Marquis Gu could seize the chaos to rebel and claim the throne. I knew that not only the Eastern Palace, but the entire imperial palace contained Marquis Gu's agents. In the military especially, his reputation for caring for common people earned soldiers' respect, exceeding even their regard for the emperor. He had concealed all this very skillfully. The poison Marquis Gu provided was to be added gradually to Prince Adrian's daily tea. Over time, Prince Adrian's health would deteriorate beyond any physician's ability to diagnose. I accepted all the poison, but never used it. Marquis Gu didn't completely trust me either, frequently visiting Prince Adrian to observe his condition. Whenever he planned such meetings, I would exhaust Prince Adrian through passionate nights, leaving him visibly fatigued the next day, thus earning Marquis Gu's partial confidence. After serving as crown princess for 1 year, Prince Adrian and I appeared together at the spring festival. I wore the mutton-fat jade bracelet, gazing at the garden's spring beauty while asking Prince Adrian sweetly, Do you still remember our first meeting? Prince Adrian's eyes were full of tenderness. Certainly, Grace wore an aqua dress, beautiful as a spring vision. Does your highness understand Grace's feelings completely? Prince Adrian smiled. If I didn't understand, I wouldn't have chosen you. After returning to the palace, I dismissed all servants and presented Prince Adrian with a stack of letters before kneeling. Your humble consort is guilty. Having repeatedly failed to dissuade father and being unable to bear leaving your highness, I can only, please grant me death. That stack contained letters I had written imitating Marquis Gu's handwriting, with contents like, conceive quickly, after bearing a prince, eliminate the crown prince, and I shall personally assist the imperial grandson's ascension. Prince Adrian's expression changed dramatically. He regarded me coldly. This was your joint plan with Marquis Gu from the beginning, wasn't it? I removed all hair ornaments. Since becoming crown princess, father has grown increasingly arrogant. I don't know who has been manipulating him towards such intentions. Seeing persuasion proved futile, I could only report truthfully to your highness. Prince Adrian remained silent, continuing his cold stare. I wept openly. Your consort is willing to die, proving her innocence, asking only that your highness remain safe and prosperous. I then turned to strike my head against the table corner. Prince Adrian quickly caught me, though my forehead still sustained injury. I promptly fainted. When I awakened, Prince Adrian sat haggardly by the bed. Grace, I was wrong to doubt you, Prince Adrian said, gently touching my injured forehead. Your highness need not blame yourself. If Grace hadn't encountered you and become crown princess, today's situation wouldn't exist. Tears filled my eyes as I struggled to sit up and kneel on the bed. Your Highness, Grace can distinguish right from wrong. If the people can live peacefully while His Majesty, Her Majesty, and Your Highness remain safe, Grace would do anything. Prince Adrian helped me up. If you truly consider me your husband, don't hide things. Marquis Gu isn't your birth father, is he? My heart jumped at these words, though I feigned confusion. What does your highness mean? Prince Adrian sighed. I had investigations conducted. The Duke's wife did bear a daughter while accompanying Marquis Gu on campaign, But the frontier's harsh conditions caused the child's death before age 1. Years later, Marquis Gu returned with you, and everyone assumed the legitimate daughter had been sent away for health reasons. I quickly adjusted my expression. If your highness knew all along, then why? Prince Adrian smiled. I never cared about your origins, only about you as a person. True, I once admired Jade Reverie, but gradually my heart focused entirely on you. Your every gesture and expression became precious to me. I had considered keeping Jade Reverie as a secondary consort, but seeing you wear those jade earrings, I recognized your inner grievance, so I selected no secondary consorts. This was the first time in our year of marriage that Prince Adrian had discussed these matters. Didn't your highness think me ungrateful? Marquis Gu raised me for 10 years. Prince Adrian sighed. You're still too naive. Did he raise you for nothing? He always expected you to become at least a secondary consort. That's why he invested in your education. If he truly rebelled, he certainly wouldn't spare your life. I pondered briefly. What does your highness plan? Though I had countless strategies, I couldn't voice them. I needed Prince Adrian to believe this was entirely Marquis Gu's plot while I remained merely a victim. This would deepen his protective feelings toward me while maintaining rational separation between myself and Marquis Gu. Insufficient evidence requires more waiting. Insufficient evidence? Then I would provide evidence. The next day, Prince Adrian's agents intercepted a letter from Jade Reverie to Marquis Gu. I fear my sister enjoys only pleasure, forgetting the Marquis still supports her family. If I can assist the Marquis, please remember the position you promised me. Having studied Jade Reverie for 10 years, imitating her handwriting was simple. When frontier warfare intensified, Marquis Gu was appointed to lead troops into battle. No sooner had Marquis Gu departed the city with his army than Prince Adrian ordered all military families brought to the palace, confiscating their personal belongings. Marquis Gu's forces had barely entered the mountain valley when imperial troops surrounded them. The imperial soldiers displayed family members' possessions. Even the most loyal troops couldn't sacrifice loved ones and surrendered their weapons. Marquis Gu was secretly returned to the palace while Prince Adrian's trusted commanders continued the campaign. Meanwhile, as crown princess, I invited the earl's family to the palace for a reunion. Jade Reverie arrived dressed alluringly, gazing seductively at Prince Adrian, but within moments was taken away. Days later, news arrived of Marquis Gu's death in frontier combat. Jade's father, grieving his old friend's death, fell ill and died. Prince Adrian was indeed Prince Adrian, swift and decisive. I knew I lacked ability to topple Marquis Gu alone, so I had to use others as my weapon. Marquis Gu's expectations for me were to become someone close to Prince Adrian. Whether primary or secondary consort mattered little to him. But from the moment I met Prince Adrian, I knew I must become his only wife. I wanted his heart to contain only me, so I systematically destroyed Jade Reverie's image in his mind, successfully replacing her in his affections. I was never kind-hearted, perhaps once, but not since entering the Duke's household at age 7. Because I learned that kind people don't necessarily receive good fortune, and soft-hearted people accomplish nothing, cannot seek revenge. To honor my father's sacrifice for the state, the emperor bestowed countless rewards upon me. Dressed in fine robes, I stood in the imperial prison viewing the disheveled Marquis Gu, who had lost all former authority. Never expected to be undone by a little bitch like you, Marquis Gu said coldly. I opened a food container. Father, please eat while it's warm. I prepared this personally. Father should eat before departing. Marquis Gu spat at me. Bah! You little whore! Have you forgotten who rescued and raised you for 10 years? I smiled. Daughter could never forget. It was you, father, the mighty Duke of Dingguo, who embezzled disaster relief funds and delayed military rescue, causing my entire clan to starve and die in that rock slide. I can never forget how my parents gave me their last morsels to keep me alive, how my brother held me high with stiffening arms so I'd be found and rescued. Marquis Gu's expression changed dramatically. How do you know this? I laughed coldly. I must thank you, Father. Seeing how well I live now, my parents' spirits can find some peace. I turned to the opposite cell containing the Earl's family. Uncle Jade, where do you suppose historians will choose for your burial site, a scenic mountain forest or vast open plains? Like Marquis Gu, the Earl looked terrified. What are you planning? I smiled sweetly. Uncle Jade, you're too forgetful. Don't you remember 10 years ago when you consulted fortune tellers about an auspicious mountain ridge in your ancestral lands? Despite local officials' warnings, you built burial grounds there, causing landslides during heavy rains that buried over 10 villages? Do you recall this? To clear your family's name, you threatened officials into silence and paid my dear father all the relief funds, misreporting 10 villages as one and claiming all refugees were rescued, truly exemplary public servants. On sleepless nights, do you see those buried villages? Do you remember those homeless refugees? During those 10 years in the Duke's household, I studied everything tirelessly, never knowing rest. Closing my eyes brought visions of my parents and brother I never dared forget. When I learned Marquis Gu wanted me to become crown princess based on my resemblance to Jade Zhen, I realized my opportunity had come. I succeeded in making Prince Adrian love and trust me. I succeeded in using Prince Adrian's power to avenge my people. I had planned countless times to leave after achieving revenge, but I couldn't abandon Prince Adrian. Though born of schemes, I had genuinely fallen in love with him. Congratulations, Your Majesty. Congratulations, Crown Prince. The Crown Princess has given birth to a little prince. The physician knelt excitedly. Prince Adrian beamed. Wonderful, truly wonderful. Grace, choose a childhood name for our son, Prince Adrian said, embracing and kissing me. Alex, may he have smooth fortune in all things. May he always have parents and family nearby, never experiencing what his mother endured, living peacefully without needing schemes or calculations. Perfect, Alex it shall be.